I am back. Giants baseball, past, present, future. I'm Ralph Tyko with the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, and Timmy Haller is on hiatus. I'm here. What can I tell you? But you know what? I'm resourceful. I've got Ian Kahanowitz to co-host the Giant Show with me until when and if Timmy gets back. Ian Kahanowitz, professor, teacher, attorney, pod show host. You're terrific, Ian. You're terrific on this network, and what a delight to be your friend. Ian Kahanowitz, baseball maven. How are you, sir?
Well, I appreciate it, Ralph. Always good to be on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network. Love what you do. Love the people and the shows that you have, and it's all for the good of educating the fans and the listeners. And so, hey, you run a good show. I'm delighted to be part of it.
I appreciate it. That's all we can say. And as kind of a reward, those of you who have listened over the year and a half that I've been doing the Giant Show, you're going to get to learn about our Stan Musial, probably the classiest guy ever to play for the New York/San Francisco Giant franchise, Monte Irvin, number 20. And Monte, I'll tell you, Monte was playing first base with Whitey Lockman in left. The first game I ever saw as a Giant. They switched them around from time to time back in the day. And Ian's going to give you a little bit of a background on Monte and how it came to be that the Giant franchise was blessed with his presence.
Well, Ralph, if you would come and talk to me about, like, if Monte Irvin had it in the cards to him to even be a ball player, I would say the cards were stacked against him. He was born on February 25th, 1919. Again, he was born in Alabama, in Halberg, Alabama, segregated town. Ku Klux Klan was having a rise during that time because to picture the birth of the nation really riled up Jim Crow and segregation in the South. He was eighth of 13 children. And then they moved they went north to Orange, New Jersey. And, he was one of five people to live in Jersey to be elected to the Baseball Hall of Fame. And don't forget, he was on the Chicago Cubs, too. So he was also one of 42 Cubs elected to the Hall of Fame. In high school, he starred in 4 sports. And this is where he became a complete athlete. He broke the state record of New Jersey in the javelin throw. He played baseball for the Orange County Triangles, the local semi-professional team. He was offered a football scholarship to the University of Michigan, but had to turn it down because he did not have enough money to get out to Ann Arbor. So instead, Irvin attended Lincoln University and was a star football player. However, him and the coach didn't mix well, and he found he could not remain on his athletic scholarship and pursue pre-dentistry. He wanted to be a dentist, almost like Casey Stengel. As his frustration mounted, a lot of people don't know this stuff about Irvin.
I had never heard of dentistry in his early years. Never.
Yeah. He was in the pre-dentistry studies at Lincoln University. And, people know that I have a Negro League site. People know that I speak very highly of the Negro League. I think without the Negro League, there would be no Major League Baseball today because what you had was a nurturing of African American culture throughout the United States because Major League Baseball was colorblind and did not allow African Americans to come in. And so Irvin went to play for the Newark Eagles in New Jersey in 1938. And so Larry Doby, who we all know Bill Vick brought up a few weeks after Jackie Robinson, was Irving's double play partner when he played with the Newark Eagles and Monte. There. Now, a lot of people don't know this. So after hitting
the shortstop, which one was the shortstop?
I believe Larry Doby was the shortstop and Monte was the second baseman.
Okay, that's
very
interesting. Two Hall of Famers. How good was Monte in the Negro Leagues? And before anybody writes letters, that's what they used to call it. We're not calling them Negroes. That the league was called the Negro League. That was the expression.
Right.
But,
he was very good, Ralph. He was probably one of the better players. And again, this is before he went into the service. Now, he hit for high batting averages. Now think of these numbers, Ralph. 422 and 396 from 1940 to 1941. By the time 42 was rolling around, Irving asked for a raise before the 42 season. When that was denied, a lot of people forget there was a Mexican league around in the 1940s that were hoarding the best and brightest Negro League players and Major League Baseball players.
Major League players, Sal Mackley was one that went down there.
Mm-hmm.
And learned English, as a matter of fact.
Yeah, and a lot of people can't deny that the Mexican League, and again, Landis is still alive. Commissioner Landis is still alive. No one's going to break into Major League Baseball as long as he was alive. He would die 2 years later in 1944. So Monte felt that his skills, and again, he's 23 at this point. So he felt his skills were marketable, and the Mexican League was able to pay these guys both and steal them from the Negro Leagues and from Major League Baseball because there was no reserve clause. There was no nickel and diming. So he went to the Mexican League. And what he did in 1942 was he won the Triple Crown. He had a 397 batting average with 20 home runs in 63 games. And that says a lot for, the kind of player that was Monte Irving right before the war, because then he's going to go into military service after that.
Right. How did military service change him and his mindset?
A lot of people don't know, but he joined the Army's GS Engineers, the 13th Battalion, and he'd be in the Army from 42 to 45. He was deployed to England, France, and Belgium. Now, he fought during the Battle of the Bulge when Hitler decided to unleash his last gamble offensively in the West. And a lot of people might not know what the Battle of the Bulge is or was, but at the time, the American forces in the South, the British forces in the North were coming up from Normandy after D-Day in 1944. We had taken Paris, and we were moving towards the German border. A few months before, in a plan called Operation Market Garden, whereby the British and Americans parachuted behind German lines and tried to siege up 7 bridges in an effort to get the boys home before the Christmas of 44 and quicken the end of the war, failed. A lot of the Allies were scattered, they thinned out, and the line was especially thin in the Ardennes forest, Luxembourg, right in between France and Germany. And so Germany poured a lot of resources, including Tiger II tanks, and in December of 1944, they attacked, and this was a brutal battle for the Americans, and the Americans held 75% of the brunt Hitler tried to split. The whole point of it was Hitler tried to split the British in the north and the Americans below in the south, which were riding to the German lines, in half, so that their supply lines would be cut and the German forces can seize the port of Antwerp and stop further material and men coming in from that harbor, where the Americans would have to go south and it would be a harder fight. Patton in the movie, he moves through the snow and they end up winning. But it was probably the bloodiest battle in Europe for the Americans, and Monte was there. And he said, Irvin, that while many black soldiers had been treated badly by their white counterparts, the situation improved for black soldiers as many white soldiers realized that there was a different mentality. Black people aren't the stereotypical thing that they've been feeding. They're fighting right alongside us in Europe. And if we're fighting oppression in other countries, our own African Americans at home are being oppressed. So I think Monte Irvin, although he saw a bloody battle, and believe me, how it affected him was he saw people's, bodies strewn about, arms flung, blood, dead comrades, you name it. But I think he also saw his fellow soldiers changing their minds about how we're going to think about African American players.
Took a long while.
Yeah, he did.
And I heard something from Peter Golenbach, our friend, our mutual friend. Peter said that Monte told him that Branch Rickey had first offered Monte the opportunity to break the color line before Jackie. And
that's absolutely true. That's absolutely true, Ralph. That's absolutely true. What happened was
Monte turned him down. Monte said he just, after all he'd been through, he didn't think that he could turn the other cheek for the 2 years that Branch Rickey required Jackie Robinson to eat that big pile of poo and not say anything for 2 years. And Monte said, I'm not equipped to do that. I've already seen too much. I know what my limitations are. Can you answer that?
I can, and I can answer it in a two-part answer. Number one, Irving's military service and going to the Battle of Bulge and seeing combat left him with ringing in his ears, which affected his coordination. When Branch Rickey did approach him after World War II, Irvin felt he was not ready to play so soon after the level because of his his disability now, the ringing in his ears from all the gunfire. However, a second part has to come in here, and we cannot forget about Effa Manley, the Newark Eagles business manager. Her husband had died in 1946, and she was left with the team. Now, she saw integration coming, and she was a very shrewd owner. And Effa would not let Rickey sign Irving without compensation. You see, what Effa wanted was, and, Monte Irving being a star player, was integration of not only players from the Negro League, but she wanted whole teams to join the Major League Baseball and integrate whole teams, and the owners get compensation, from Major League Baseball as rightly as anyone should. But she refused to do that. She told Branch Rickey, Effa, that he had, he had taken a Don Newcomb and, for no money, but she wasn't going to let him take Irvin without some compensation. Furthermore, if he tried to do it, if Branch Rickey tried to do that, she would sue Rickey. So there was a lot of contract squabbling. And, again, you're dealing with two different leagues, and Major League Baseball's holding all the cards. So what happened was Ricky contacted her to say he was no longer interested, and that was it.
Wow. So
now,
skewed his chances of being the first African American.
Yeah, she skewed his chances. But you know what? Irvin felt he wasn't ready, and rightfully so after what he saw. But I'll tell you what did happen with Irvin right after the war, before he even went back to the Eagles in '46. He went to play in the Puerto Rican Winter League in between, right after the war, and before Brand Trickey decided to try to fish him in, reel him in, and he won the MVP honor in the Puerto Rican Winter League in '45 and '46. And then he returned to the Newark Eagles in '46 to lead his team to a league pennant. He won his second batting championship, hitting .401, and was instrumental. This is huge, Ralph. Beating the Kansas City Monarchs in a 7-game Negro League World Series by where Monte batted .462 with 3 home runs. And, by this time, he was a 5-time Negro League All-Star. And so you can say he was just as instrumental as DiMaggio or Ted Williams. I don't care who you are. The Negro Leagues had the same kind of quality players that Major League Baseball had. They just had a different skin color. In this prime, you could put Satchel Paige up against any pitcher. You could put Josh Gibson up against any, hitter. And you have
Bell went down the
line
of great.
You could do it.
Yeah. It would change the record book. Goldenbach also told me that in 1939, Bill Veeck came very close to integrating. There was a chance back then he was going to take players en masse, not just one. He was just going to sign a whole bunch of players. He owned the St. Louis Browns then, and the owners were absolutely dead set against it. They even skewed him going on to Baltimore when they moved. They said the team can move to Baltimore, but you're out of here. Bill Veeck, if not for Mr. Rickey, would have brought the first black. Obviously, he brought Larry Doby in right after that. Do you think that Monte was as in the top, very, very top echelon in the Negro League?
I think he was. I think his athletic ability, I think his numbers, I think his perseverance, was equal to Josh Gibson's. Yeah, and the thing with Veeck is this. Let me just say this: the Philadelphia in the early '40s. So in '43, most of the baseball had ditched the ball fields and gone to the battlefields. And in '43. The Philadelphia Phillies had just completed a 3rd straight losing season with over 100 losses, and Veeck wanted to buy the Phillies and stock them all with Negro League players. So he would have, and again, Monte was in the service by that time, but I guarantee when he got back, Veeck would have put him on the team. He was instrumental in not seeing color.
Right. How did Stoneham sign him? How did Monte come to Stoneham, or Stoneham came to Monte? Which was it?
Well, I think what happened was Stoneham came to Monte. And what happened was the Giants paid $5,000 for his contract. And the thing is, it came 3 years after Jackie. And when he came to the Giants, he was assigned back to Jersey again of the International League. He was there, and he batted .373. And this is great stuff. He batted .373, and in 1949, the same year, I mean, he's only a few months in the minors, he debuted with the Giants on July 8th, 1949 as a pinch hitter. And he went back to Jersey City in 1950 and was called up after hitting 510 with 10 home runs in 18 games. And for the year of 1950, Irvin batted .299 for the Giants, and he played first base and the outfield.
Right. He did go back and forth with Whitey Lockman quite a bit. As a mentor to Mays, there are stories, that they didn't get along quite as well in life. I think Mays became embittered in life, and Monte never did. Monte had a cheer about him that he couldn't understand Willie's reaction to the world. Sure, it wasn't perfect in Monte's eyes, but it could have been a lot worse. And can you speak to that at all?
Well, I think Willie Mays had, it's funny because DeRocha was the manager of the Giants, and when Mays came up, he had Monte Irvin mentor Willie Mays, and in the beginning it was a very, very good relationship. And I'll even quote Mays saying, "In my time when I was coming up, you had to have some kind of guidance. And Monte was like my brother. I couldn't go anywhere without him, especially on the road. It was just a treat to be around him. I didn't understand life in New York until I met Monte. He knew everything about what was going on, and he protected me dearly." And then Irvin later replied, "I did that for 2 years, and then the third years, he started showing me around." So he got Mays going. But I think with Mays, because of his talent of being a five-tool player, and that's with his glove and his bat, he edges out Monte Irvin a little bit at this juncture, because by now, Monte's been playing for about 15 years, and now Willie's a 20-somewhat, rookie, and, Monte's in his mid-30s now. And
right.
So what I think was there was more on Mays' shoulders than Monte Irvin now. Mays became bitter because what he saw with the civil rights movement, being a player along with Hank Aaron and being there through the same thing. But again, remember, Mays was banished from baseball along with Mickey Mantle because they had dealings in a casino. You don't see any of that with Monte Irvin. Monte Irvin lived a clean life.
They managed the casino, but they were basically props. They were greeters at the casino. They were no more involved in gambling than any of the owners that Bowie Kuhn represented and scared off. That was probably, if I could think of anything that was more detrimental to baseball, I can't, than Bowie Kuhn banishing Mantle and Mays. Big names. These are names that Mantle, as first base coach, could draw in all this stuff, and Willie with his cheer and all that. That was a horrible move by Bowie Kuhn. I think that led Charlie Finley to call him the village idiot.
Yeah, well, Bowie Kuhn, you can say a lot about Bowie Kuhn. You can listen to my shows on Marvin Miller that I do with Jimmy Driscoll and Krista Swanson, who wrote the book, who just got the Sabre Award for Best Research on a book. Bowie Kuhn was not a very shrewd baseball commissioner. But without Bowie Kuhn, I don't think we'd have free agency. I don't think we would.
Well, you could say without Marvin Miller. I think Marvin
Right.
Miller kind of deked Bowie Kuhn with the free agency thing a little bit. Can you get into that?
Yeah, sure, absolutely.
Was the all-time genius of it all. Go ahead.
Marvin Miller, without Bowie Kuhn, there would not be free agency. Not that he persuaded,
right.
he didn't
go
want
for
it.
He was
clearly on the was a genius. He was, after World War II, he was a union representative for the power companies. He was the labor leader. And he brought together, in 1966, he was voted the MLB Players Association director. And at that time, the reserves clause was still in effect. Players were still being nickeled and dimed. That year, Drysdale and Koufax held out on Walter O'Malley to get a raise to $100,000. And even then, they were sorely underpaid. So you really had the owners, having the players by the balls, but that changed with Miller. And it changed in the sense that he went around to every ball club and he looked for solidarity. He said the only way we're going to get to the owners is if we have something called a collective bargaining. And collective bargaining is not one of us, it's all of us. And if we all stand together, eventually we will erode enough ways that within time the reserve clause will be gone and the balance of power will shift from the owners holding the cards to the players owning the cards. And, he did it little by little. In 1968, Miller won a big victory with the pension funds for all the baseball players that the owners now have to dip in a little bit more for the players because they're getting an extra source of revenue now from TV, which you didn't have 10, 15 years before. So Miller was saying, look, you're selling products. That product is the baseball player. The baseball player don't get the royalties you do, but they got to be compensated in some way. And of course, in '69, and then you have the Kurt Flood case, which of course Flood lost, but he challenged the reserve clause, saying he's not an indentured servitude. He's a player, and he should have the right to ask for more money. And the Supreme Court ruled against him, but Flood's case opened up a stronger union, whereby Marvin Miller was instrumental in 1972 of persuading the players to go on its first ever strike from April 1st to April 13th in defiance of the owners not contributing more and not raising salaries. There was a lockout in 73. By 74, you had a loophole in Catfish Hunters contract whereby Charlie Finley
missed the payments on his insurance
annuity.
or an annuity. Yes.
Yep.
And that freed him up.
He freed him up. But Miller and Vida Blue was instrumental because Miller, in the year before, during the lockout, he got the owners to agree to arbitration. Now, that was huge. A lot of people don't know that. By 1973, 75% of the balance shifted to the players. Years ago, you couldn't have an arbitrator. You were powerless. When Mantle didn't win the MVP in 1959, I think it was, over Savage, he said, I'm going to stay home. And George Weiss said, go ahead, stay home. Now you could actually challenge the owners to arbitrate salary, and that was huge. And Vida Blue got himself an agent and negotiated a salary by which he made $14,000 a year. He wanted $114,000, but he settled on $60,000 in 1974. And Hunter now, the courts ruled that his contract is null and void because ownership did not live up to its bargain. But still, Miller and the Major League Baseball Players Union knew that was not the straw that was going to break the camel's back. He needed somebody to sit out a year because that reserve clause said after a year, players are free to go wherever they want if they, lose a year. And so he got it. And Andy Messersmith and Dave McNally, and both of them went to court. They won their cases, and basically the reserve clause fell down, and free agent, as we know today, now exists because of it.
Well, Ian, it wasn't just the money. It was the right that the owners had to keep a player under contract in the minors. You sign them, they can't be freed, and you might be playing playing on the same team in the same organization as like a guy like Hank Sauer, who started with the Yankees in his minor league career, and he couldn't go anywhere because Lou Gehrig was the first baseman. And that affected Hank all his life. He came up 2 or 3 years later. He went through Cincinnati, came up to the majors 2 or 3 years later than he would have if he were, say, in an organization that needed first baseman. And that's where the tremendous inequity was between the owners and the players. They could be locked in for a lifetime. They could be signed by a team and never, and this is in the minors, and never get the chance because that team wouldn't let you go. It's evolved now. You have 5 years. If you're in the minors 5 years, you become a free agent, this, that, and the other thing. Everything's changed, and it's a pendulum. And the way it swings, it is naturally swinging towards the players. And everybody goes, well, look what they have. Look at how strong the union is. Well, it's a result of all those literally hundreds of years of being repressed, and that's what happens. The pendulum swings both ways. Hits the guy in the middle in the ass on both ends, but that's the way it goes. What do you say? Am I off? Off with that?
No, you're on base, and I'll tell you why. I think when it came to the minor leagues, in the time of Gehrig and Babe Ruth, while it was true you had a position player like Gehrig and Ruth, whereby you're stuck in the minors because you're never going to get a chance to go up and play. And by the time Gehrig and Ruth's skills are diminished and they're out of the league, you're already old. You've been a has-been. But this is what happened. Branch Rickey was instrumental in organizing the best minor league team. Now, the drawback of that was he got the best and brightest, but the big drawback was there was too many of them. And because there was too many of them, they couldn't get to the major leagues and they couldn't be traded. They were stuck in the minor leagues all their lives. The Yankees followed suit off of Rickey, and of course the Dodgers did. But the Yankees made a fatal mistake. Unlike Rickey and the Dodger organization, which cultivated their players, by the end of the 1950s, the Yankees were making trades with the Kansas City Athletics. They called them like the mini Yankees or the Yankees farm team. And by 1964, when the dynasty ended, and you had that superb run from 1949 to 1964, whereby I think the Yankees only missed 2 years in the World Series, the minor leagues had dried up and for them. And I think Marvin Miller, who came in 2 years later, said that's another thing they have to work on is to rotate the players and give them a chance to get up here. And if a player doesn't want to be on a team anymore, they don't have to be. But that would come another 10 years.
Right. You just think back how many players lost their livelihood because of it in the past. And it's very sad from that standpoint. But progress. Who are the ones that impeded progress that we don't know about in terms of blacks assimilating into the league? We know about the Happy Chandlers. We know about this and that. Who are the ones that kind of worked covertly to sabotage things? And give me some names there.
And, I think the biggest one that comes up on my radar right now was Lee McPhail from the Yankees. Just finished Paul Dixon's Leo DeRocha. And in 1946, right after the war, Ricky was saying, I'm going to integrate. McPhail got a letter out, a memo to all American League teams to do a study on why the Negro players are not up to par and why they could never come into Major League Baseball. Basically, the whole American League followed suit. So you had, Tom Yawkey up here in Boston, who, the Sox were the last ones to integrate in 1959.
Yeah, Pumpsy Green.
Ponte, he was the last one to do it. Yankees was second to last, I think, with Ellie Howard in 1955. And, a lot of people give Casey Stengel a lot of flack. And by the way, tomorrow, I got Marty Appel on the show talking about his new book on Casey. But Casey was a product.
We just had him the other day. Tremendous interview. He's been on the show a number of. What a great guy is Marty Appel.
Yeah, Marty was the PR relation for the Yankees. He was the youngest one of the Steinbrenner in '73, and of course, during college, he opened the mail for Mickey Mantle. But a lot of people give Casey Stengel flack because when he got Ellie Howard, he said the N-word, and I can finally get myself an N, and he can't run for shit. But again, Casey was from Kansas City. He was a product of his time in 1890 when segregation was going. He didn't mind black players. He didn't mind. I don't think Casey saw color either, just like Leo DeRocha with all his faults. Didn't see color either. But I still think the Philadelphia Phillies were another one that gave, every time he came to Philadelphia, Jackie Robinson, not Cap, the guy who was on New York, and now he was the manager of the Philadelphia Phillies. I forget his name.
Oh, wow.
But
Sawyer?
Yeah. He did,
The guy Jackie posed with after he belittled him so much that
right.
he had a smile on his face that he wanted to hit him with a bat right there.
Right.
They got him together and they posed. I can't think of his name right now. I'm almost glad that his name is blanked out of my mind. That's
you had St. Louis. Now this is very paradoxical because the St. Louis Cardinal team of 1947 refused to get onto the field when the Brooklyn Dodgers were in town, and Jackie was in town. The only player who took the field was Stan Musial out in left field. He said, I'm gonna go play. Yeah, I don't see a problem. And it would be very different a decade later when St. Louis would spearhead huge integration of African American players. You had Bill White, you had Bob Gibson, Lou Brock, you had all of these players now, and you're going up against a hugely white Yankee team.
Yeah.
But I think
that over the years that hugely white Yankee team seem to come out on top quite a bit. That's what kind of amazes me in a way, because from top to bottom, the National League was integrating with great guns. The only exception, Cleveland, and that was Bill Veeck. Like we talked before, Bill Veeck would have been the person to bring an African American in first if it weren't for Branch Rickey. So glad things are changing along those lines. But you know what? There are fewer African Americans playing in the big leagues right now than there were in 1955. And
you know,
it's
it's sad.
Yeah.
It's sad, Ralph. It's sad because it's only 8% of ball players now. And the thing is that Major League Baseball now is importing talent from the Dominican Republic, Panama,
Venezuela, all over.
And I think we've seen it in the World Baseball Classic, by which the United States won its first thing. It was very disappointing in ratings on the Major League Baseball Network. Not only a lot of people care about it, but if you look at the crowds that showed up for the Dominican Republic and Puerto Rico, Israel did very well. These different countries take baseball differently than the United States. And I got a show coming up in a few months, Baseball Internationally. A couple of gentlemen just wrote a book on it, David Nieves, will be on the show to talk about why baseball is thriving, homegrown talent in other countries, and why Major League Baseball is looking outside rather than inside.
Nice. Hey, Ian, we're going to wrap it up, but I want you to promise when we come back next week, we're going to talk about the current Giants, what's going on. They're off to a very rocky start. And we're going to tell you why next week. We're going to stay current and talk a little bit about the future of the Giants, what's coming up in their farm system. And, Ian, this was a terrific first effort for us together on the Giants show, as I knew it would be, because you're fantastic.
I appreciate it, Ralph. And, you know, a lot of people got to put it in perspective here. The Giants were a New York team. They were the Manhattan. They were not Brooklyn. You know, they were not the Bronx. And people forget how instrumental the Giants' history is going back to New York, because now we're 60 years removed. They're in San Francisco, and, you know, you see them as a West Coast team, but they were very instrumental in New York.
What's very interesting, I was thinking about my boyhood heroes on, say, the 54 Giants that won the World Series were the manager and his four coaches. It was Al Dark of the 62 San Francisco Giant team that won the pennant. That was the Willie McCovey line drive that could have gone either way. They would have won the World Series. But the manager, Alvin Dark, and his coaches, he had Whitey Lockman, he had Larry Jansen, and two other coaches whose names escape me right at this moment. They were New York Giants, 1954 World Series history. So when you look at that franchise, it is just one franchise. It's not two separate franchises. People make that mistake an awful lot. And kudos to the San Francisco Giants in their stadium. They have their walls covered with New York Giants plaques and memorabilia and this kind of stuff. They pay homage to the past, and the past is the New York Giants. So as we've been doing on this show for like a year and a half, we try to give you a little bit of history, a little bit of present stuff, and a little bit about what's coming up. Again, it was a rough opening week for the Giants, and we'll talk about it next week. Thank you, Ian. Look forward to this.
See, so do I, Ralph. Love talking Giants baseball. love talking any kind of baseball, but
I know
the
you
New York
do.
Giants. Oh, it's great. Oh, it's great. It's great. It's great being on the show.
Hey, when you write your book, I was just thinking about that. We talked off the air about books that you have in the hopper. Write a book about baseball announcers.
You know something? I got Eldon Ham coming on my show in May, and he wrote the definitive book on broadcasters, which I have in my house.
I didn't know that had been written.
Yeah, it's been written already, and he's going to be on my show. He just sent me his book. Me and him are friends. He's a big lawyer in Chicago, and he's always inviting me out there. He's always on my pages. But he wrote the definitive book on broadcasters through the years.
Well, that was just a thought. I just want my needs met, and I'll get them met with that book instead of by Ian Kahanowitz. That's the way it goes.
Hey, that's it.
Hey. Love you, Ian. Thanks for being my pal.
You got it.
All right. Talk to you soon, baby doll.
That's right. My baby dolls will be listening to this show.
Hey, give me your intro. Give me your intro on the show. I love it.
You love it? All right, here we go. My baby dolls, we're back again. Another episode of Genesis. There you go.
Look for Genesis on the Comfortably Zoned Radio Network, comfortablyzonedradio.com. I'm Ralph Tyko. This has been terrific. Adios, everybody.
Take care.